You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. Did you know mold toxicity is the number one most overlooked root cause of chronic illness, impacting 95% of mystery ailments? These are the people who cannot get better. And our guest today, Dr. Ashley Beckman, is a Chinese medicine doctor. She is an acupuncturist. She's an herbalist. She is overqualified to be on the podcast. And she's worked in that patient population of chronic illness for over 20 years. She's taken all the information and she's turned it into a knowledge-packed course called Mastering Mold, which equips you with the skills to confidently address this growing health crisis, from protocols to lab reviews to different case studies. You're going to gain expertise to really help your clients. And you can use code Beautifully Broken for $150 off the course. This is affordable, it's self-paced, and you're going to be learning from one of the best in the field. I'm so excited for this interview. Let's jump on in.
Welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel, and on this show we explore the survivor's journey, practitioners making a difference, and the therapeutic treatments and transformational technology that allow the body to heal itself. Witness the inspiration we gain by navigating the human experience with grace, humility, and a healthy dose of mistakes. Because part of being human is being beautifully broken.
Team. After battling Lyme disease and cancer for 20 years, I'm always on the lookout for cutting-edge ways to slow biological age and repair damaged tissue. A key factor is our body's ability to produce stem cells, a process that unfortunately declines sharply after age 30. In fact, age-related disease can reduce your stem cells by up to 50%. This is where stem regen comes in. This is a stem cell booster that has personally helped me, increasing circulating stem cells by up to 300 million in 1 month. You heard that right. Stem Regen optimizes your body's repair system using powerful adaptogens to naturally enhance the stem cell production within the body. For full scientific deep dive research, you can check out episode 179 with founder Christian Drapeau. And I'm excited to share that Stem Regen offers a 30-day money-back guarantee on purchases through the official website. You can use code Beautifully Broken for $30 off your first order. Let's go, let's grow, let's repair. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break from the show and allow me to get up on a soapbox. I want to spotlight Silver Biotics Wound Gel. This is a product that is an antimicrobial layer that helps with cuts, lacerations, skin irritations, and first and second degree burns. So it utilizes silver sol technology, which we've talked about. This is the ability to steal electrons from pathogens, making it more effective in the body. So the company has substantiated its claims with 420 independent studies, as well as 60 patents pending on this groundbreaking tech. So I endorse it because it works, but also due to the extensive research and scientific validation the company has done. So in an independent in vitro report, this is very important, we compared Armor Gel to 7 other similar skincare products, such as triple antibiotic ointment, the standard of care. The study focused on the kill rate for MRSA, VRE, E. coli pathogens
responsible for severe emergency room infections. Within a 4-hour window, Armor Gel completely neutralized the pathogens, and this was a feat that was unmatched by any other product in the study. So the Silver Biotics Wound Gel stands out not only for its performance, but actually its price point. So this is a must-have for moms, for coaches, nurses, doctors, anybody concerned about the body's largest organ, the skin. And in today's environment, I just saw a fact where MRSA infections are up 35% since 2020. This is crucial. So we just need to be prepared. Don't wait for an emergency room trip. This is something to have in your cupboard. It's under $20 and you get 30% off using the code Beautifully Broken at checkout. This company is giving this to you at cost by using this code, and they are not only a sponsor of the podcast, but they are friends, and I support what they're doing in the world. Let's jump back into the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We are here with Dr. Ashley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning.
So good to see you.
Always good to see you.
We met at Dr. Jess Petros's retreat down in Florida, correct?
That's right.
Yep. I want to say that was 2022.
It was now. It was a while ago. Yeah,
Wild.
almost 2 years ago now.
Wild. And, I've known about your work for a while, and since that retreat, I've got to follow you online and look at all the amazing things that you do. In this container of wellness and human optimization and chronic illness, how do you provide service in the wellness world?
Sure. So I work virtually. I live in Malibu, but again, I have worked in this field for about 20 years. So I started as I'm actually working for a naturopathic doctor that focused on Lyme. So, and again, these things always end up happening, right? I said, I will never work with Lyme clients. It seems like the worst thing ever. And then what ends up happening, you get Lyme, right? So I basically, our life imitates things. And I always seem to focus on things that have also happened in my own life. But at the same time, it's amazing information. And there's so much needed out here in this space because there's a lot of noise, a lot of different options. And I have always been very interested in health and wellness, but from the most basic levels of what can you do every day, and especially food and herb-based, right? So that's kind of how I got started. And I started learning about homeopathy, and I studied with a well-known classical homeopath. And he said, if you love herbs and food this way, Chinese medicine is the best and most studied, and you need to dive into that.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly understand a systems approach, which we do not. When you had that experience and you said you had worked in different clinics and you'd worked with chronic illness and Lyme, and you said to yourself, I'll never work with Lyme. It seems terrible. What did you mean? What felt so bad about it, and what gave you that, like a magnet repelling an opposite force away from it?
So again, this was in about 2002, right? So I was a baby in this whole world, right? Not too long after college. And again, I was someone though, we had iridology where I worked. So I was looking at eyes, and I was looking at, we used bioresonance machine, an old machine called the Quantum, right? Very old, but really cool things. I had seen a practitioner in high school using these things. So I've been in that world, but I was sensitive to perfume. I got a migraine if I walked by, the detergent aisle in the grocery store. And I just was wondering, why am I different, right? And so when I was around all of this Lyme clients, it just seemed like their life was really difficult, right? And that we also saw a lot of multiple chemical sensitivity is what it was called back then, right? Very rare. Someone couldn't walk into a room without full-on reactions, which now we see mast cell and things all the time. But it just seemed awful. Like their life was so disrupted. They were in chronic pain. Again, they had migraines, which I ended up being someone with migraines. But I did notice, at least for myself, if I was so strict with gluten and dairy and sugar, most of my symptoms went away, right? But I had never really heard of root cause medicine, or why would that be happening? It's not just the food that makes you sick. It's usually what it's feeding that's lurking in your system and just kind of waiting for an opportunity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so lucky. Like you, I probably had symptoms of Lyme. Probably, we're looking back on it, I had a really bad mono infection when I was like 16, really bad. Like I had this, I played soccer and I don't know if you played soccer, you had like these like warm up tracks. They'd zip up to the bottom of your chin. I couldn't zip that up because I had like these baseballs in my throat. And I'd say around 2001, I started to get really severe symptoms. But it's so wild how differently it presents in different people.
Yes.
Today I would consider myself like cured of Lyme, whatever that means. But, the majority of symptoms that I have, I think there's probably, as the body, not dissimilar to like a Pontiac over time. We only have so many miles on the car. Sometimes I'll get an ache or a pain and be like, oh, is that Borrelia? Or probably not,
right.
Because I'm pretty darn functional. And if you happen to see some of the Lyme documentaries where, goodness, people are not only are they suffering, but they're completely bedridden. These are extreme cases, but neurological Lyme is so severe.
Yes.
And people's lives are changed forever. And most of the time, they are not validated in their experience. It's really, really wild.
And that's, I guess, what I would say. I was already on the path to natural medicine, but what happened was one day I woke up and I really couldn't walk. Like it was so extremely painful. So the Lyme that I had seemed to just really be in my ankles and wrists. So it hurt to hold a cell phone. It hurt to walk. And then again, kind of neurologically with migraines and things like that. So I went to my doctor, who was just a regular doctor. And I said, I think that maybe I'm allergic to gluten or something, like everything really hurts. And she said, well, no, you would have digestive issues. What you have is some sort of undiagnosed autoimmune. You're not going to know what it is for probably 10 years, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I said, well, I'm in grad school for acupuncture. I'm sure there's some sort of solution, right? But even in school, in acupuncture, they don't look at gluten as inflammatory, right? We use gluten as an herb. There's fermented wheat that we use. And so I was the only person at that time asking, is there gluten in any of these formulas that I'm taking, right? Because a lot of our formulas, there's some gluten, right? And they said, oh, no, it actually helps heal your stomach. So you don't have to worry about it. So it's just different, right? It's a different mindset. But again, when we looked at that, when I look back, I for sure, I had symptoms as a kid of ankle pain and things like that. So I probably have had it a long time at that point even. And that was in about 2006. But again, I chalked it all up to food sensitivities because in holistic nutrition, that's kind of where we were back then, right?
Yes, we were. Yeah, I remember doing those first rounds of, I think the one I did was called Sage.
Oh, yeah, I did Alcat, right?
It was very expensive at the time compared to what it costs today.
And I did realize, too, every single food I was eating I was sensitive to because I made the same healthy smoothie every day, right?
Yeah, 100%. So, it's probably the last test. People always tell me, I'm going to run this. I was like, look, if money's not a thing and you don't care, then go ahead and get the data. And it's probably highly likely that you're going to have some relief from your symptoms if you remove trigger foods. And your body will probably adjust its sensitivity to the new foods you start eating. So, I'm not sure what good information it gives us at this time. Other than that, if you did have a severe allergy, then that might be a nice indicator.
Yeah, I'm all about rotation, right? And so again, with all my, especially little kids and adults too, I'm like, you just rotate, right? Don't make a giant bowl with 8 vegetables in it. Pick a couple, or meat and veggies, whatever you eat, but just rotate.
Can you give us why that would be beneficial for someone's chronic pain? And can you tell me an example, like over a week, like how many times am I allowed to eat broccoli or cauliflower or a protein?
Sure. So I have found the proteins tend to be less of an issue I've seen on sensitivity tests, right? So again, I am a big proponent of meat for medicinal purposes. That's how we see it in Chinese medicine. I work with lots of people, and I do believe meat is extremely beneficial and a cornerstone of our diet. So I, have gone through different things, but basically it generally takes about 3 days for a food to clear. So if you eat something about twice a week, but you space that out, that's a really good model to follow. And then again, I'm generally not a big grain proponent, but if you do, rotate them around, right? But again, people love to just combine these huge, bowls and stir fries and salads with a whole bunch of things, or they try to throw everything in a smoothie. And I'm just like, make it simple, maybe beef protein, milk of choice, whatever you can use, and then one fruit if you're using fruit, and just rotate.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite protein that you're using right now? I always love to ask people what they're doing.
I love Equip. The Equip beef protein is my favorite.
Okay, Equip. I've not tried that one.
Oh, you haven't? It's
No.
great too because it's made in mind for low histamine, right? So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, most people, right, they can't eat a lot of, even have the bone broth proteins and things like that. So Equip is simple. It's just beef protein.
Amazing. I'm doing one called the Fittest from Whole Feast, which is a bunch of animal parts. It's like liver and spleen and kidney and muscle. And I tend to I have no bloating or gas from it. I've almost a year I've been on it. I really like it. I use it to bake with.
Yeah. They're very good. I think, again, that's really great, right? Because then you're basically, a lot of your nutrients are in that. So that's right. Very important.
Right. But I still have this, I think there's an inner knowing that I should be rotating my protein. I should, and I do. I tell you what really does well for me in this, we'll call it the pond of someone who's recovered from chronic illness. I do well when I do 2 full days of vegetables, no protein.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, really. I would assume that it impacts lymphatic flow and I guess the inflammatory proteins that are a byproduct of digesting, a pound or a gram of protein per pound of body weight would be diminished for a couple of days. So I just get a little reboot.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Again, like I've done carnivore. Carnivore was an amazing reset for me. I feel so good, right? I felt amazing on it. I don't think that it's the best long-term, right, on its own, unless you really need it, right? But I'm not fully on the vegetables are bad, right, for everybody. So I do think that, there can be some really great benefits. And then we know this just because of the microbiome, we do need to feed some things, right? So but the carnivore is such a great reset. I mean, I felt amazing, but then you have to figure out how to make something a lifestyle and not just a elimination diet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll see people, and listen, whatever makes you feel good.
Yes.
But the outliers on the bell curve, I think you're going to see people want to just ride that ship into the ground, whether there's scientific data to promote its long-term beneficial reset or not.
Right.
I certainly, I just had Dr. Grace on and we talked about the microbiome diversity in centenarians and that microbial community within people living over 100 is like the truest form you can follow. And they ate diverse diets. They had time without eating, but they had all their keystone strains, their strains that they got from their mother, and their microbiome was very robust. And that's, to just remind anybody on the show, if you didn't catch that one, that is what's digesting your food. We have stomach acid, but it's all the bacteria in there that are breaking it down. So I want to circle back around to gluten.
Yes.
And gluten's it's like an amino acid. It's a string of amino acids, right? It's a protein. So is your body allergic to the protein, or is it the fact that we just have such a severely compromised microbiome? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I'm kind of probably because gluten impacted me so much and I feel it within 30 minutes. For my particular system, I think that it's not the best. At least it hasn't been yet in my life so far, right?
Yeah.
Again, I was someone who, the typical story of when I studied abroad in Europe for 6 months, I ate everything over there. No problem. Do I think it was just the processing? I'm not sure because, you know what I mean? I also had a very different lifestyle. I was walking everywhere all day. You know what I mean? It was completely different. But I do get definitely very strong reactions from gluten and even, heirloom strains, beautiful massage sourdough starters, all of that. It's not really making a difference, the type of gluten for me. So again, but then if you think of, different things that I've had in my life with Lyme or inflammatory thyroid issues, those also have an impact with gluten, right? And so I think there is a lot of cross reactivity. So in general, I happen to be someone that grains are not the best. But again, when I bring it back to what's in my body that is eating those grains, right? Or the same with sugar, I think there are things in there that they just love it. And so that's their food. And then when they get it, I get a lot of symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a similar camp. I have found that if something's been cross-contaminated or, there's been bread on the plate and I know I've got I don't react like that. And I used to. I
Right.
used to be, if there was some type of a byproduct that had wheat in it in a standard processed supplement, it would crush me.
Yes.
And I would feel fatigue and brain fog and all the same things. And I was just so hypersensitive, and that is not how I exist today, given, I've done a lot of stuff and a lot of healing and tried a lot of different things. I would love to know from your perspective, you said you got to work with this great population with tons of people going through Lyme. Do you ever notice, and this is obviously going to be your subjective experience, that so many of the treatments that we can have access to, let's say 10-pass ozone or SOT therapy or hyperbaric chamber, they're cost prohibitive.
Yes.
Did you see people with unlimited resources get better quicker because they had access to this tech or these, things that are out of reach for a lot of people?
So I would say not necessarily, right? I did work, another doctor that I worked with here in Beverly Hills, who is a functional medicine doctor. He focused a lot on IV chelation. He would recommend ozone, but we didn't do it in the office, right? Some things like that. Very aggressive, right? Prescribing DMPS, EDTA, a bunch of different things as it changed and progressed as what was available. And I would say the thing is I was trained in very aggressive protocols, right? I always thought initially, I would fast and I would do, again, this is a long time ago, but the master cleanse. I did that every season, right? For years. And I was small, right? Me losing 10 pounds on 110 pounds is a lot, right? So I was extremely weak, exhausted, tired, and that's not really what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
I see things so differently now. I definitely do not think more aggressive is better and it's going to get you better faster, right? I feel like we're always trying to talk people down now from these kind of very aggressive treatments, because I've also had a bunch of clients who they do just try the ozone and then they get Epstein-Barr flare that now we have to manage for another 6 months because it was too strong for them, right? So I'm all about slow and steady wins the race. I think we can do so much with herbs, nutrition, food. I use homeopathic series kits from Bio. I use a lot of targeted herbals, right, from a few different companies for Lyme and mold and metals and things like that. And I think we have to get out of that, right? Of like, oh, but if I do this excessive treatment, will it work faster, right? But then again, I have some clients that, ozone changed their life. So or hyperbaric, right? There's so many things. But I don't want someone to put all their like eggs in one basket, because then they're trying to save up for this very expensive treatment where ideally we need to work with them for a long time and just keep kind of plugging away at it naturally and help the body do its job, but with the right tools, right?
Yeah. I think it's asking better questions about the body. I always go back to the framework of biological medicine, and I was just doing a journaling exercise last night, and it makes the most sense to me. It's a systems approach, but we're looking at the body as a fish tank. We're looking at the inner milieu, the terrain, and you have this dirty, moldy tank. And the first thing you have to do, you have to drain and clean the water.
Yes. Yeah.
If you think about all the things we try to add in treatments, it's like, of course you feel terrible.
Right.
Of course you feel bad. And then my mentor in biological medicine always likes to say, he's like, I don't see Herxheimer responses because I'm very aware of what that person's drainage capability is.
Right.
And I support that first. And I make sure that's online, from the intracellular, extracellular fluid ratio, from lymphatic flow to genetic detoxification pathways. And so I really have a good understanding of how far they're going to be pushed. And then, I'm doing things like nebulizers, castor oil packs, magnesium baths, nurturing, strengthening things. And I was like, the beauty about that line of thought or that working theory is that like everything I just mentioned is so very safe and so very smart.
Yeah. And you basically too, I want things that people can do at home, right? I want them to have tools they can use so they can use them multiple times a week if needed. And that's the exact thing to me. If I've given someone, a protocol and they have a big Herx reaction, I've been too aggressive, right? So that's not my goal ever. Like I want people to be able to still live their life and go through this process. Again, if they're bedbound, it's a whole different case, right? But again, if someone's bedbound, the last thing you want to do is make them feel even worse, right? We're trying to just clean these things up so that they can actually accept treatment well, and then have tools that they can utilize and then keep doing throughout their life, right? It's not just this targeted little time period that we're working on. It took them decades usually to get to where they are, unfortunately. And we know just our exposures every day are a lot between water and food and emotions and nervous system and things like that. So there's a lot for us to do, and people want one magic pill, or one treatment that's going to 110 pass. It's just going to wipe it all out, clean out your whole blood, and you're good to go. And unfortunately, these pathogens are very intelligent and they like to hide. And we kind of need to figure out how to draw them out and then get rid of them. But at the same time, create a very happy ecosystem in our body so that we're all thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a solo podcast last week about having a rough 2 months of sleep, which we had chatted about a little bit. And I finally I'm like 10 days in of every single night, like a 75 HRV and like 3 hours and 40 minutes of deep sleep. And I just feel so good. And I just go back to my true knowing the value of sleep as medicine. It's just incredible. It's incredible.
And those foundations, again, like I always come back to them and everyone skips over them, right? Because it sounds so simple, but the hydration is so critical, right? Most people are dehydrated, and that's huge cornerstone. Or just going to bed before 10, right? Just different examples. And then again, how dysregulated do they get in the day, right? Like, are you rushing around? Even just giving people, and especially I'm a mom, we're running around, but the same, do you like cram everything in so that you're running on adrenaline all day? Or do you plan and give yourself space, right? Just that alone will decrease the load in your mind and hopefully balance some things out. And then I'm a big proponent, right, of balancing sugar, because so many people are just all over the place. I love CGMs. I love seeing it and saying, just if someone can see, if some of the things they think they're doing are really great, they might not be, right? Like you could be getting these blood sugar spikes and a lot, and from foods you think are okay. Again, I think especially the people with Lyme and chronic illness, I would say the amount of people that downplay sugar, and this includes honey, maple syrup, however it impacts you, right? No one wants to give up sugar. I get that. I understand. But if you have something that's feeding a lot of these pathogens and you're working so hard to get rid of those, but you won't give up your, nightly glass of wine or whatever it is, or your, sweet treats, you are kind of derailing things every day. And we know basically, I always say there's usually one habit you have every day that's throwing things off quite a bit. And just depends, for some people, and then they'll admit, they're like, well, I still use Coffee Mate, or it's like something that I wouldn't even think of, or, oh, I still drink tap water. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So we have to start at the beginning, right?
Yeah. It's so funny. I think my Achilles heel that I've really been thinking about is I want so badly for everyone to think that I'm doing a good job. It's kind of in this chronic people pleaser zone.
Yes.
That I'll reflexively hold back like my initial response. And I'm like, oh, that's not right. Shouldn't say that now. I should like work around it. And so I will find that sometimes I'll be waking up and at 3:30 in the morning, and it'll be like an angry, I'm like, that's not fair. That's not right. This makes me feel bad. I can't work this way. I can fill it all in. But if I journal before I go to bed, and if I can identify anything that's going on as far as a loop, and I just tell my body, I'm like, hey, let's just set this down.
Yeah.
We'll pick it back up tomorrow morning. That's been really helpful for me. And I mean, even the first night I did it, I was like, oh my God, I slept through the night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really powerful what we pack down in our psyche, and, do that 46 years
Yeah.
of really, you're like pushing to perform so you're worthy of love. And that's a big old Achilles heel that'll make you sick.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I'm the same age, and I don't know how much is kind of from, how we were raised, and you know what I mean? It's very different because now I see my daughter, you know what I mean? It's always like you're trying not to hurt their feelings, where I think when we were little, there was still a lot of, wanting to be perfect and a bunch of these things, right?
Gold star. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't really have that. But then you get the other, it's very interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
I know. We'll see how it plays out. I don't have kids, so I can only look into my brother's house or sister's house. They have, they all have lovely kids, but yeah, man, it's different. Mm-hmm. My dad was like, cowboy up.
Right. Yeah.
Don't cry. Yeah. Cowboy up. Pick yourself up. Dust yourself off.
Yeah.
Time to be a man. Yeah, it hurts. Good. Get over it.
Yeah.
I love those memes from it's like, I'd love to transport kids back 40 years and see if he'd even be alive. Because we were just I mean, the things we did, we would jump out of second story barn windows and, fall off rope swings into rocks. We'd be like, I'm good. You know, everybody was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're kind of I'd say this is a little different thing, but, we're in the sort of autoimmune, right, mystery illness camp, I think. The kids now, it seems like it's all hitting them neurologically, right? But I think it's more of the toxins, right? Because I work with a bunch of kids. Again, I work with families. So it's usually the mom that comes in that's sick. And it's, again, I work a lot with mold is the number one thing. But the kids are really sick too. And if they were born in a household with mold, they are very sick. And they have tons of crazy eczema. It's not necessarily breathing and respiratory things, but they have OCD and just so many things. And again, these mycotoxins are really, really impactful, especially on these little bodies too. They're bad enough on adults, but these little bodies, it's very bad.
Yeah, 100%. I know. Goodness. I'm trying to think of the podcast I did where we did all the environmental toxicant panels.
Oh yeah. That's my favorite lab.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I got into all this because of toxins, right? So it started kind of with fragrance. And then I realized everything that was in skincare. So then I kind of threw everything away. And then eventually, actually, my friend and I in grad school, we had a handmade organic skincare company where we bottled everything in glass, made it all with Chinese herbs and flower essences and gem essences, and essential oils. And we based it on the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. And then you change kind of during each season. But again, now it's very common. There's lots of great brands that are very clean. You just, you can't really use these big brands. It's all,
I know.
It's made to sit on a shelf for 2 years. So how good is that going to be for your body, which you absorb everything? It goes straight to the bloodstream that you put on your skin.
Yeah. Yeah. My friend, it's so funny. My friend Matilda just launched a company she's got great products. They're all small batch.
Yes. Yeah.
Ethically sourced, made in tinted glass, but she has a body butter and a face exfoliator and a facial oil called Goddess Glow. And it's a great product. Everybody I gave the product was like, what is this smell? And it's just, it's as natural as it can be and totally, just giving your skin life. It's really wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And people forget, again, that's something that we always have to look at, right? That's a habit that someone is doing every single day. So for some women, they're still putting on perfume right here by the thyroid, right? And they're wondering why their hormones are off, or, they're called obesogens, right? These different hormones are actually causing your body to hold on to more fat and weight. And it's something that you actually choose that, right? Because you could make a choice for a different product.
Yeah.
People just aren't aware.
Yeah. And this one, she looks younger than her daughter just had a baby. Like she's grandma.
Yeah.
I'm like, you'd look like you're 26 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, her skin is like absolutely flawless. It's amazing. It's amazing. I want to pivot to mold.
Yes.
I want to pivot to mold because this is a big one. And obviously there's a symbiotic relationship with biotoxin illness from Lyme disease or Lyme and Lyme's co-infections. Let's put it in that camp. Because what is Lyme really? I'm always reminding people, they're like, oh, for a treatment. I was like, if you get 100 people in a room and everybody has a Lyme diagnosis, what's the ratio? What's the infection? What's the co-infection? Everybody would be different.
It would,
Everybody would be different.
And I love, again, I use the Vibrant tick-borne panel, right? That's what happened.
Me too.
I was in a house that had a ton of mold. I didn't know, but that's what happened is I had transitioned to a fully virtual practice. So I just thought, I'm at my office all day, but I went from seeing 30 people in person a day to, of course, I jammed my schedule, like 8 people a day online because I thought, this should be so easy, right? It was not, very different. But then I felt horrible again, like I hadn't in 15 years. And I thought, this is so weird. Like, what's happening? And so then I ran the mold test first, and I came back with a bunch of mold, or maybe 6 kinds. And then I just thought, you know what? Maybe I'll run the Lyme panel because, these do correlate and overlap quite a bit. And then I came back with 21 different strains and co-infections. So it was a lot.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that I finally was like, this has been all the joint pain and migraines. It's not just food sensitivities. Like these are all these internal pathogens that I've had.
Yeah. It's really hard. I mean, that was my first presentation, was just horrendous joint pain. And I say joint pain, but it's really, I don't know if you join with me in this. It's like tendon and collagen pain. It's really like my knee joint is sore, but it's really the tendon or collagen around it. It's like, because if I look at a scan on my knee, my every single, osteopath or sports medicine guy's been like, your knees look great. Look at that space in there. Look at that collagen. They're like, perfect.
Yeah. And I never had swelling. I just had the classic, like, it's in my toes one day. Now it's in the left ankle. Now it's in the right ankle. The next day,
1,000,000%.
Left elbow, right wrist, and I was just like, and then in Chinese medicine too, we call it wandering joint pain, which is a form of dampness, which again, mold and these pathogens, they're damp, right? And so that's why I love hot weather, sunny, dry, and that makes you feel good. But again, you're not getting it. These little critters that are living in there causing damage.
Burrowing spiral bacteria burrowing into the collagen and forever.
Yeah. Making a happy home.
Making a happy home. So with this transition into online service, you're in a new space, you are working in mold. What were the presentations of symptoms that you first were like, okay, something is really, really off?
Sure. So to be fair, I used to cheat maybe once a week with gluten, right? So for about 10 years, this was prior to me having my daughter.
Oh, you're a cheater. Love it.
I was. Because I just thought, like maybe, a little headache or a bad headache is okay, but I could keep it at bay. But since I had, like when I got pregnant and things like that, I fully cleaned it up because I was like, I can't have migraines anymore with a child. So my diet was perfect, right? I don't need sugar, maple syrup, honey, any of that. No grains. And then I still felt horrible. I got all the joint pain again. I had crazy brain fog. I was really tired. And again, I chalked it up to sitting and being at a desk and then just being in front of a screen all day too. And I just thought this isn't totally right, And so again, like I said, I ran all the labs and I was like, oh my gosh, of course, this is just, there's a lot here to work on. And then we tested our house, and basically because it was in the HVAC, like I stopped testing our home at 6 rooms because it was positive in every room. And even our inspector just said, we used your house as an example of one of the worst cases we've seen with almost no visible mold, right? Like everything looked great. So you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But it was in, like I said, I stopped at 6 rooms with high levels of multiple types of mycotoxins.
And what type of testing did you do specifically?
Sure. So this is such a huge thing. Everyone wants to know. So with testing, I just had someone come out and inspect, and I only did a few rooms at first, right? I wanted a smaller inspection because it's expensive, but I have a company I love here in Los Angeles. And then they do, right, like air sample testing, control sample, visual inspection, and then plus they'll take surface sample testing. So unfortunately, most of my clients, you can't just do air samples, you will miss stuff, right? I have clients with beautiful, pristine air samples and they have so much hidden mold and they're still very sick. So I have, you know what I mean? So unfortunately, you can't just do one thing. You can't just do the inexpensive test plates and send them off, right? And then there's the dust test, which is like a surface sample. And then you're gathering dust from different places around the home. And that's where you can kind of see if there's some hidden testing. And again, ours were extremely high in all of these. So unfortunately, it's not that easy, but I do tell clients like you can go in order of cost, right? But it's also to take a look and see and kind of learn to look for signs as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say my recommendation to somebody, if you're really concerned and you just want to put your mind at ease, you're going to test the body to see what's coming out of the body. You're going to test the air to see what's in the home. You're going to have a sample outdoor air to see what's outside your home. And then you do also do a surface test. And I don't like the trays. There was I can't remember the test, but they would literally send you either a little cloth that you'd swipe and you do 10 surfaces and send it back. It's been a long time since I've done that one.
That's an ERMI test, right?
An ERMI test, right. Did the ERMI. But if you can triangulate the data, and then for the air samples, indoor, outdoor, bedroom, living room, second bedroom, I've been using Got Mold. I've been using Jason Earl's test. But, you gotta look everywhere, especially if there's symptoms. That's I think that we want to focus on.
And when it's in your body, right, I do use the urine mycotoxin testing. I like Vibrance the best. It has the most amount of markers, about 3 times as much as Mosaic or Real Time. So I use Vibrant because you can get a pretty clean test on a Mosaic one and when you still have symptoms, then it's, you know what I mean? It's just also because you're not using the most comprehensive test. The other thing is some people are using a blood test and you can use that. But again, they test differently. So again, if someone has if they have extra money that they want to use on testing, you could do both. But I still use urine mycotoxin testing the most. You just don't know if something's from a past exposure or not. But at the same time, when we find mold in someone's test, no matter what, it has to be addressed, right? It's usually, to me, and what I've seen is because I run so many labs, I see it in about 95% of my clients that they have some sort of, like, let's just say 2 or 3 or more and up to 10 or 11 types of mycotoxins. So it's really important. And because what it does by suppressing the immune system so much, it allows these other pathogens to flourish, like chronic Epstein-Barr or basically Lyme, right? And the co-infections, different types of viruses and pathogens. They're there hanging around because you've kind of like taken away the goalie, right? And so unfortunately, you need to address the mold. And that's why it's a huge piece of what I work on consistently while we address symptoms as well.
Yeah. And so what are some of the tools that you love for mold?
Sure. So for in the body, again, you always have to start with foundations, opening up drainage pathways. If you're not going to the bathroom regularly, you cannot start detoxing, right? So we have to open that up. I love sauna. I love red light. Lymphatic drainage is very important. And then looking at what are you eating, right? Are you feeding things? Are you eating a lot of sweets and grains and processed foods? Then we need to look at that. And then for supplements and things, we have to really nourish and support the liver, the gallbladder. And then I am a binder fan. So I do love glutathione. I know not everybody uses glutathione, but I do like it if it's appropriate for the individual. Not everybody can take it. I love TUDCA you need some sort of bile support, really good liver support. And then I use binders. Again, I take the things I love from multiple brands, right? I love Quicksilver. I love Cellcore. I use a line called Zuma, and I use a line called Dust Bio and Body Bio, right? So I take my favorites. I work on cell membrane too with PC or, another line I like, Prodrome. So anyway, a lot of things to just, you have to nourish the cell, clean up the terrain, and then also get the stuff out, right? So I'm not a full like terrain versus germ theory. I think you still need to clean up and get the pathogens out. You know what I mean? I don't think everything's black and white. You need to do both. It's the same. You can't just meditate your way entirely out of a super toxic situation. So I'm a big proponent of nervous system regulation, but I still think you need to do the work and get the stuff out of your body.
I heard someone say yesterday, we did a sauna over here. I got off the plane and was lucky enough the sauna was lit at my house. And
Nice.
It's contrast therapy right out of the plane. And someone was talking about reframing the idea of nervous system regulation, because it's like the question was, are we really regulating? Are we putting the nervous system in a box where we're controlling it? Or are we navigating the nervous system? I was like, I really like that subtle shift in a descriptor. So I'm going to start adopting that, navigating my nervous system and my response to outside world.
Yeah. And even the things we say have so much impact, right? So if we keep talking about nervous system dysregulation or whatever, it just keeps, impacting us that something's wrong, right? It's the same when you talk to clients. I think all the time, I gently find a way to see if we can reframe certain words, because they just, of course, you don't realize, again, when someone keeps talking about how sick they are all the time, or even identifies as sick or identifies as having something, right? That puts so much into your psyche and just keeps re-ingraining that you are not well, right? And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it. We name so we can treat and so we can bill for it in the US, but it's not always helpful and it doesn't really impact outcome. I want to ask a couple more questions I want to talk about, for people at home, you've gone through mold exposure. This is a new conversation for you. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But cell wall membrane, and you said PC. Now I know that's phosphatidylcholine.
Yeah.
But why do we support the cell membrane? What happens when we have a mold exposure or a bout with a chronic illness? Why is cell membrane important to nourish?
Sure. So basically, the cell membrane is kind of like the castle wall, right? It should protect all the contents of the most precious things, which are our cells. And basically, you can create and you can nourish and support this phospholipid layer. So there's certain things that can help with that. There's PC. And then again, so the big companies that do that are Body Bio. Quicksilver has one that I like. And then also there's one by Prodrome, which is an egg yolk version as opposed to soy. So, me, I kind of like the egg yolk version, and it's just different. But it's the same. You want to protect this because that is going to help from things entering the cell that aren't supposed to. So we want to create that stability. Unfortunately, a lot of these pathogens, again, they're very intelligent and they find their way into our organs and body and just whole system and cells, and they are very destructive, right? So while we still need to get them out because they are, when they're a problem for us, it's because they shouldn't be there or there's too many of them, right? I always talk about kind of like the gut as this happy, cohesive place, right? Where it's not our job to just eradicate these things all the time, right? Mycotoxins are a little different. They're extra toxic, but, we always have candida. We have all these, so many trillions of cells and things like that. But the amount of different types of gut bacteria and yeast and fungal and everything, it's more about keeping it, in alignment and happy so that we're not reacting from all of their waste, right? A lot of the things that we react to is not the actual organism.
Yeah.
It's what they give off. So when you have too many of them, what we're not able to do is filter out all those endotoxins. And that's where we're cleaning things up as well, right? But so that involves finding that and getting that out, right? Either with various ways.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's just something that was a late, I want to say last 3 years, I've really started to understand cell membrane and, how it gets dried out. It's not permeable. We have problems releasing toxins from the internal components. We have problems taking in the nutrients that we're supplementing with. So it's really an important conversation. I have a friend he's been going through a lot of challenges with Lyme and mold. And now this is a very expensive investment, but I think he's doing a high dose phosphatidylcholine
IV
every week. I think he's doing 6 to 8 weeks. It's a chunk of change.
It's very expensive. Yeah.
It's very expensive. What does something like that cost?
Are you talking about IV or is he doing high dose?
IV.
Oh, yeah. I don't know the cost for IVs. Plus, I'm in LA, so our costs are always way more.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
So, but yes, so I suggest though too, the protocols that I use are high dose oral PC, but again, I do really like the Prodrome one. It is very expensive. A little bottle is $200, right?
Yeah.
But again, so a lot of the work that's done with that is around also Alzheimer's and, a lot of anything that's impacting the brain, right? And a lot of these toxins are. So unfortunately, it's not something you always, have to be on, but you do need these therapeutic doses that you kind of front load.
Yeah.
But you have to ease in, right? You could feel sick. So it's, again, everything is so customized and tailored, but there are certain things that people can do. Because you were saying kind of like, what does someone do if they suspect they might be exposed to mold, right? That's a very different situation than someone is, bedbound and not functioning. But so a lot of my clients are I definitely have bedbound ones, but there are a lot that are basically, they're still very functional, but they're not who they used to be at all. Right. And they can't continue in that way because they can't play with their kids. They can't be a good parent. Their job is not, doing well because of the brain fog. And there's so much anxiety too, right? Because they don't think they're ever going to get better. And is this their new life? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of anxiety just the last little 2-month blip.
Right.
That it was very scary for me. A lot of PTSD came up. When you say high dose PC, phosphatidylcholine, and we're talking about like a body bio.
That's like
right?
4 tablespoons.
What if it's the capsules?
Oh gosh, the caps are like there's
20.
It's so many. Yeah. No,
Is it?
Yeah. The caps, I don't use the caps much. I know that they're great for travel, but the therapeutic dose is so many that it's like you go through a bottle in a week, right? So I do try to always get the big bottles for clients, right, of the big PC. But again, this is when you're front loading and you're dealing with very sick people, right, with mold, right? So PC, though, for a lot of people can be a game changer just in how they feel energetically. And then to me, again, it's part of a protocol that's just really laying these foundations of the cell membrane health that is very critical while we're working at getting rid of what's accumulated.
Yep. Beautiful. And so, we've said all this stuff, and I've had plenty of conversations about mold over the last 5 years and biotoxin illness and Lyme. Probably, I don't know, there's probably 20 episodes. I think, the big question that the challenge we come up against is like the state of overwhelm.
Yes. Yeah.
Because people here, they're like, oh, if I put me 10 years ago, I'm listening to Richie Shoemaker or Dave Asprey, and I'm making notes on this, and I'm going out and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy phosphatidylcholine. I'm going to go buy an ozone machine. I'm going to go figure out how to do, hypoxic breathing.
Right.
And then I'm kind of making up my own list because, again, money's tight. But where does someone go to rein all this information in and put it into a knowledge-based learning program with accountability?
Yes. Yeah. So one of my colleagues and we teach practitioners how to go through protocols, and we give our protocols and how to customize them. But what we do as well is we have a program called Mastering Mold, where it's for our patients or clients who can't work with us. And it's basically a lot of the information that is about mold, how to use the protocols that we would use. Again, not a lot of customization, but somewhat tweaking. And then also protocols for kids, right? Because a lot of times people can't work with a practitioner because it is very expensive. You're looking to clean up your home, which is a huge process. We go over a lot of that in our program as well. We have some experts on what to do about what's going on in the home. But again, our focus is how to get this out of your body so that you can feel better and your family feels better too. So our program is great. It's 8 weeks, but you're going to follow the protocol for much longer. That's just the amount of information and things and how we have it broken out. But yeah, it's really great. We give you all of our resources for, products, saunas we like, detox pathways, how to open them, working on foundations, nervous system piece of trying to help you navigate that each day. And and so it's our little baby. We love it because basically every single day we get asked about this. And then I have a really great free mold resource guide too that has a lot of information in it as well.
Amazing. Where can people find Mastering Mold?
Yes. Yeah. So Mastering Mold is just masteringmold.com. And then basically, if you want the free mold resource guide, I'm sure you can link it in the show notes, right? But I basically too it's just on my website or Instagram. So on drashley.com.
Wait, and Ashley, can we offer people a Beautifully Broken discount if they go to Mastering Mold and do the course?
Yes. So we'll create your code, right? And it'll be $150 off.
No way. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to take it.
Yes. Yeah.
I need a kickstart.
I know we need to get anything that's accumulated out, right?
I mean, again, I'm the perfect example. I have access to so much information that I am drowning in it sometimes. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I did that creative writing exercise yesterday. I was like, okay, what do I know to be true?
Yeah.
What do I know that I can always go back to? Right. Yeah. There was a time when the internal milieu is relatively clean to a degree.
Yeah.
I understand the role of, like we said on this podcast, taking breaks, not being totally driven by the catecholamines, internal processing, sleep hygiene, quality of food, finding joy. I have these pillars that I know, drainage first. I have these pillars that I'm always reminded of, but I almost think it would be a great morning meditation for us to create. That's a morning meditation, but it's also patterning and some information that you can be like, oh yeah, I know that. Just like I know, I used to know all the states and their capitals. Not anymore.
No. Yeah. It takes you having kids to realize how much that kind of information you've forgotten.
Yeah. That's so fun. And who are you partnering with on the Mastering Mold?
Tori Thompson. So she's a chiro functional practitioner as well. And we're good friends. And we basically, we just want to educate people because again, every single day I get clients who have been dismissed by their doctor, or what's even worse to me is when they're dismissed by a natural doctor who said mold is not that big of a deal, or let's work on Epstein-Barr, or let's work on SIBO. Your SIBO's not going to go away if you don't deal with the fungal and yeast and parasites and things like that too. It's never just one thing, right? So again, but because mold is so impactful, it has to be at the beginning of what you're addressing.
Yeah. I certainly think it's something we can't ignore. And I'm so glad that I am not the ridiculous, oversensitized, could not go into a Target and not be in tears.
Oh, yeah. I'm not that way anymore either. But I mean, I can still smell. It's nice to be a canary a little bit, right? Because your body's warning you. Yet it's also, unfortunately, our world has a lot in it, but we should be able to go in places and not have a full blown reaction, right?
I know. I have this picture that I went to Europe. It was probably 2022, probably the spring of 2022. And we had walked into an Airbnb and behind a dresser, I could see spots on the ceiling behind when we moved the dresser. And it was like a horror movie, on the wall, big black chunky spots. And it grew up on the ceiling.
Oh my God.
Obviously, your transatlantic flight, I'm lugging amp coils and bags and up 4 floors. And I was like, we were so tired.
Yeah.
We just looked at it and was like, I wanted to cry because I was like, I'm so excited to lay down. And I had like 8 hours of sleep till I had to go like jump into like performance mode. And I mean, just walking around the apartment for half an hour, I have this picture, which I will go find for this podcast. My face, this side was like this. I was like, and it was like swollen and puffy. And I was like, this isn't in my head.
No,
it's not in my head. But the beautiful thing was, because I know all the things that we know and I do all the things that we do, by eating clean, having some things to like really drive the energy. I luckily was traveling with an amp coil. I had my
people need tools.
I had my cell core binders. I had everything. And literally within 4 or 5 hours, my face was the rosy coloredness was back. I mean, it was so, I'd never had a quick turnaround. It was one of the times I was like, I'm way better. Like,
and isn't that great finally, right? When it's like, oh, okay, I bounced back from this.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I tell my daughter, because, kids don't want to eat healthy and all this stuff. I mean, they kind of do, but I just said, you don't know me as this person that I was. So the reason I do all these things, right, is because, I would unfortunately like accidentally get a piece of gluten or, some crumbs or a crouton or something. And then I would be in a dark room vomiting for hours, you know what I mean? And not better for like, it takes out a full day. And there's people who it takes out multiple days, right? My migraines were at that point like a certain way, but people have it really horrible, right?
I know.
And she's just like, oh, because she doesn't know me as not, as any of the things. Like I couldn't hike or exercise for years. Now we just did like a mother-daughter mud run, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff. And I hike every weekend for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Like I had to stop exercising because it was in my ankles, right?
Yep.
When it's in your ankles, there's not a lot you can do.
Brutal.
And so again, that's the thing. A lot of people, again, you don't really want to revisit the things you had before because they don't think that's very healthy, but it's always great to appreciate how far things have come. And this is with all natural ways, right? These are not with big side effects with other ways.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing. So, and I just want to help people again, navigate. So we'll put every link in the show notes, and it's Dr. Ashley Beckman on Instagram. The course is in your profile. There's a link there.
Yes.
But it is www.masteringmolds.com, and we'll be able to do code Beautifully Broken. You'll get $150. How much is the course?
I think it's $495. So it's about $350 with that.
Wow, that is a deal. Oh my goodness, team.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to do a contest here. We're going to see how many people can get signed. This is such a great value. If you know somebody in your life that is struggling with mold and they're looking for all this information pulled into one area where it's digestible and there's direction and it's backed by evidentiary proof and 20 years of experience, such a good resource, so affordable. I wish that this existed in my journey because man, the first woman I think I've told the story. The first woman I found was an absolute quack, and she was doing Richie Shoemaker's protocol, but she had lost her license. She was like, had me giving her $1,000, $1,100 cash in an envelope for payment, and just a horrible experience. And I was so scared, but I was so sick. I was willing to do anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
man. What a great resource. I celebrate you and your work. We'll do this again. We could, we talked about a lot. People got to know you, but we could just talk about just the different types of molds, Stachybotrys versus Chitonium and how those impact the body in different ways. And I'm open to having this conversation go again. If you are.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, I see it's the most dismissed thing I see. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sad because it's so toxic for people that it has such a wide reach, and unfortunately it manifests in generally different ways and even within a family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's again very easy for people to just dismiss it and just go, well, I don't have those symptoms, that can't be from mold because you have brain fog and fatigue, and our son has asthma and eczema, so this can't be the same thing. But it picks our weakest link, right?
Yeah, that is true. Well, let's close it down here and we'll swing around again. It was lovely having you on as a guest. Thank you for being part of our Beautifully Broken experience. Dr. Ashley, big love.
Love you too. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and please leave us a review. 5 stars if you loved it. And before you leave, there is one big way you can continue the learning and the deepening of this relationship we started in this very episode. You can go to beautifullybroken.world and check out our brand new website store. Listed are all the wellness technologies, the supplements, the educational courses that I love and I personally use. Most of them offer significant discounts just by using the link or the discount code, which is normally Beautifully Broken, and they do support the podcast through affiliations. Now, we have a brand new feature. If you want to see the beautiful faces of our guests and watch me unbox and review products, you can head over to our new YouTube channel, Beautifully Broken World. I do have to tell you, our OnlyFans page is under construction, so stand by for that. This last announcement is from my vast team of internet lawyers. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only. By listening, you agree not to use the information found here as medical advice to treat any medical condition in yourself or others, and you're always going to consult your physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My closing. The world is shifting. We need you at your very best. So please take the steps to always be upgrading. Remember, while life can be painful, putting the pieces back together is a beautiful process. I love you. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel. Big love.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.